Good evening and welcome to Voices from Israel, brought to you by JNF UK. This is the third week of the war with Iran, a conflict that is rapidly reshaping the landscape of the Middle East. Over the past weeks, we have seen direct military exchanges, expanding regional tensions, and critical decisions being made. We are witnessing a world in transition with a powerful sense of a turning point. Tonight, we aim to go deeper, to understand what is happening behind the scenes, where intelligence assessments, strategic planning, and national security considerations shape the decisions that could define the region for years to come. To help us do that, we are privileged to be joined by someone with decades of experience at the heart of Israel's security establishment. Shalom Ben Hanan is a fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism. Prior to joining the ICT, he served for 27 years in the Israeli security agency Shabak, where he held senior operational and leadership roles and retired as head of divisions. Shalom became widely recognized as an expert in counterterrorism, intelligence operation, counterintelligence, and both Palestinian and international terrorism. Shalom, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Before we begin, I would like to invite you to join our next week's webinar about the war with Iran with Ronen Bergman, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and New York Times writer. You can find a registration link in the chat box. As with our previous episodes, we received many thoughtful questions from viewers in advance, and I will try to incorporate as many of them as possible during our discussion. So, Shalom, how, after so many years of proxy wars, did Israel reach a point where it is directly confronting its arch enemy, Iran, the head of the octopus?
Yes, it's a very interesting because it's a very natural question. And I think that I saw it from within the security system. I think that we actually was, I don't want to say afraid, but a little bit restrained and a little bit maybe having too many scenarios of how much destruction this war, this kind of a war can bring. Maybe we thought, many of the heads of the security system and of course the political establishment were a little bit concerned that this kind of a war will be too difficult to contain, too difficult to deal with. One good thing from this long period was that we built many capabilities to deal with it at the appropriate time. Okay, but
Maybe some
in my opinion,
confidence.
yes, but in my opinion, we should do it earlier. And to speak about some strategic terms, and I'm writing about it a lot these days. I think that the problem that we have forgotten a little bit, it's also an answer for the event of the attack of the October 7th, okay? We lost a little bit the capability to think about preventive wars, preventive strikes. Because of many reasons. Maybe some of them are true. Maybe there are very good reasons. I don't know. But you know what will the international community would say, and if we have the support of a certain administration in the United States or not, and other things, and maybe we just a little bit have forgotten that the best wars are the preventer wars at the due time, okay, to prevent something in advance and not waiting for your adversary to getting stronger again and again and again. And let's say honestly, this is a 91 minute speaking in the language of football, of soccer, okay? It's the 91 minutes for this war before this horrible regime in Iran could get a nuclear weapon. And I hope that we will learn the lesson for the future, not to wait to the last minute, and at the case of October 7th, even after the last minute.
So do you think it's more that we were on the defensive side?
Yes, on the defensive side, and on the side of to think how to solve this kind of conflicts in diplomatic ways. When I'm not against, well, I'm not against diplomacy. I think it's very important. But my thesis is that we have sometimes in the West, we is in the West, okay? Sometimes a kind of a conceptual failure about our adversaries, whom we are dealing with. And when we think in Western terms, sometimes it's not suitable to the situation, to the problem. So I think that we should understand that with jihadist regimes or groups, you cannot speak in terms of diplomacy, ceasefire, peace, or other terms that are not used by these groups or by these regimes. And I think we have to understand that. And sometimes the waiting for this diplomacy, the diplomatic solutions, make us weaker or too much defensive.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And from an intelligence and strategic perspective, what were the key factors that led to the current confrontation between Israel, the US, and Iran?
Well, the key factor, of course, I think was, first of all, one of the key factors was this crossroad of October 7th,
Mm-hmm.
when we have understood that it could be much worse, when we have understood that this head of the snake or the octopus, as we used to say, was almost planning a very complicated program, very complicated plan for a multiple front war, which, if Hamas would not keep it as a secret to surprise us, it would be much worse. So this was the first key point, maybe, in our, let's say, new understanding. Then, when we dealt with the problems in Gaza and um, um, succeeded to solve the hostages problem, then turned north to the northern border to deal with Hezbollah, and it was dismantling phase by phase, stage by stage, and then looking up to Iran. And we have some baby steps at this way. The last one was, of course, the 12 days war a year ago. And I think that we began to understand that it is possible, and that the gap, the quality gap between Iran and Israel still enable us to execute a war, to conduct a war, which will be in it with the upper hand. The 12 days war was a brilliant operation. I think this convinced also the Americans to participate in this war as a partner, not only at the last stage. And I think that those were several key points that brought us to this level.
Mm-hmm. And how was it that despite some of the Mossad and Amman's operational capabilities being revealed after Operation Rising Lion, they were still able to surprise and eliminate Iran's top leaders at the start of the war and again last night with the assassination of the head of Basij, his deputy, and Ali Larijani, Iran's most senior military official?
Yes. Well, as an intelligence officer, retired, um, I'm saying always that the queen of the battlefield is the intelligence. The quality intelligence enable you to conduct a good war, if there are good wars, okay? But a good war in the meaning that you will have the upper hand, that you will have the capability to strike your enemies, sometimes in surgical strikes, and with a very accurate intelligence. Now, it's true that we used part of these capabilities at the 12 days war, but not all of them. And not only Iran restored part of the capabilities that they have lost at the 12 days war, we didn't sit at home and said, okay, and bragged about the 12 days war. Okay, so
We did brag a bit.
yes, a bit, but as far as the security system concerned, as far as the professionals are concerned, okay, their job a day after the 12 days war is to prepare themselves with new intelligence, with new sources, with new capabilities. Of course, we cannot give details about all those capabilities, but some of them survived the 12 days war, okay, and lasted to help us also at this war. And of course, there are new capabilities in the heart of Iran itself and the heart of the administration. And this is very important to emphasize, okay, to elaborate about, okay, because if you don't have this precision, this surgical precision at the heart of your targets, you won't be able to make or to conduct such kind of targeted killings, which are very accurate, very creative, and of course with a very good results. And I think that in such a short time, to eradicate, to eliminate almost all the leadership.
In 8 months, it's over 40 or somewhat like 40 leaders, the
Yes.
top leaders of
40 leaders, 40 leaders in 40 minutes, as we say. I think it was very, it's unprecedented, okay, of course, but it shows, I think, the amount of time and resources that we invested to have this intelligence, and of course the capabilities. And it's not by coincidence that the agreement with the Americans is that they will use robust power, and that we will be in charge on the surgical attacks. It's not by coincidence. I think that the Americans very much appreciate our intelligence capabilities, which, of course, I'm sad to say, we had the same lack of these capabilities at October 7th, but this is another story. So for us, it's a good opportunity also to restore self-confidence and to acknowledge that we have the capability to employ a war 1,600 kilometers from Israel at this level.
How can you, when you mention the failure on October 7th, how can you explain the gap between these phenomenal results and execution?
Yes, this is
Where they're from?
$1 million or €1 million
Yeah.
or pound
Pound.
question. Look, in my opinion, I wrote about it a lot and gave many interviews. Maybe I'll write a book about it. The failure wasn't a failure of intelligence. The failure was a failure of too much self-confidence and a conceptual failure in analyzing the adversary, the enemy. This is the problem. And in my experience for few decades and failures that I had myself, okay, not a failure like that, but intelligence failures. Sometimes, even if you have all the intelligence in front of you, you will ignore it if you have a conceptual failure.
So it's not about the data that was lacking, it's about the interpretation.
It's not even about the interpretation. The interpretation draws from the conceptual failure. If you convince yourself that the other side will not start a war, it doesn't matter that you will see hundreds of soldiers training and thousands of warriors, terrorists, training to a war. Okay, you will convince yourself that it's only for fun. I don't know what. I don't know what was the excuse. Okay, I know that in many years when I was in Shabak, I talked about it. And I said that we have to ask ourselves, is it logical that all this training, all these processes of buying heavy and light arms, okay, and all the plans that we have known, like the Jericho program, which I'm sure that you heard about it. Okay, what do you have to need to prepare yourself to a war when you have the program, the plan, the exact plan of the other side? It's not an interpretation. It's a conceptual failure to think that there are other reasons to have that plan or to train for this kind of an attack. I didn't see in all of my years in security system, in the army, in the Shabak, I didn't see that somebody is training for something for nothing. I didn't see it. And this was the main failure, and the signs and the data months before the attack, and especially at the night of the attack, were many signs. And it's sad to say that it wasn't enough.
We were captured in our own
Yes,
perception.
yes, yes, we were.
But going back to the war with Iran, how has Khamenei's elimination changed the situation? Is the world after him fundamentally different from the world before?
I think that there is no assassination in history that changed the world. I don't know this kind of
Phenomena.
a form or event. Maybe you will not agree with me, but look, I have a lot of experience in what we called targeted killing operations. Okay, I always joke with my wife and my family that it's good to go to meet the prime minister and get an excellence paper or something like that. Okay, a prize. We have a prize once a year from the prime minister for the best operation that was at that year. Okay, so I have some of these trophies here, but we never saw this influence about any system on any system, okay, that a targeted killing operation shuts down this system completely. We saw few cases when it was small networks or small organization that the assassination of the head of the organization had a lot of impact for several years, not forever, for several years. Okay, why? Because it was very centralistic and very small organization. That was the case, for example, in 1995 at the targeted killing operation of Fathi Shkaki of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It was a very small organization. So for 5 to 6 years, maybe 7, this organization was struck very badly. Okay, but we killed all the heads of Hamas at the last 20 or 30 years, I think, at the second Intifada and after the second Intifada, and always they have a replacement, a good replacement after that. But I think that targeted killing operations, when they are in during a war, during a campaign, are very important and have a lot of impact at the adversary system. So the killing of Khamenei um, put the administration with the killing, let's not forget, 40 other leaders at the same strike. And this is the important thing. The important thing was that all the leadership was striked in one strike in 40 seconds at the beginning of the war. Now, this can bring you to a situation that the other side is in a chaos and having trouble because there are no system, I think, that in this decapitation of all the leadership has the resilience to continue
They prepared to it.
a
They
real
did
war.
prepare. Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
They did prepare for it. They knew it's a possibility, and
Yes,
they prepared for the day.
but it wasn't enough because we beheaded all the leadership and all their replacements. You know, President Trump is joking about that. There are no leaders to deal with now, to talk with about any kind of an agreement. So I don't want to sound too arrogant, and I don't want to be, it's more important, arrogant. But it was a brilliant strike, and a strike like that, that only open a campaign, only open a war, a comprehensive war, is very important. But the strike by itself, look at Lebanon. Okay, we killed Hassan Nasrallah. I want to tell you that we killed also the leader that was before Hassan Nasrallah. Okay, we even don't remember his name. Okay, today,
Mhm.
Abbas Musawi. Okay, nobody remembers him. Okay, but there are no people that don't have any replacement. Sometimes the replacement is not like the other guy that went down. Okay, the replacement of Hassan Nasrallah, Naim Qassem, is not at the same level of Hassan Nasrallah. Okay, so what? So what? Hezbollah is still targeting Israel. We had now, few minutes ago, a wave of launching rockets on the northern part of Israel of about dozens of rockets, I think. I will count them later. We had a good intelligence about this attack, but the organization has survived. The organization has survived. And the problem is that we must insist to finish wars like we had in the past, with a decisive victory, with decisive surrender of the other side. When you
We
stop,
will we will get to that point,
okay,
but I want to ask you first to get more deeply into this in relations to Khamenei's assassination. Many people are fascinated by Israel's ability to reach very senior figures in hostile environments. And
mhm.
from your experience, what does it actually take to locate and reach such high-level targets deep inside enemy territory?
Okay, so my basic profession is a field officer, a handler, which handles spies, sources, and agents. So the first tool, in my opinion, maybe today even more than ever, because the adversary knows that technology, know the level of the technology, and knows that the technology is very dangerous to someone who is now a fugitive, okay, on the run, okay. So the first tool and the most important one is a deep penetration to the heart of the system with spies, with human agents. On top of that, of course, you must have a lot of technological abilities. Most of them we cannot talk about, but the use, of course, of artificial intelligence, satellites, SIGINT, OSINT, and the other systems will bring you additional intelligence, and of course, at the end of the line, the capability to process this intelligence in a very short time with technological capabilities and of course with human analysts. And this is a key point because sometimes the data it looks like it's too much to handle. And you must have also the technology, but also the professionals that know what's important and what's not at the minute, and to bring the pinpoint intelligence only for the operation. So all these capabilities, I don't know if you heard, but today the Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, said that there were a task force working only on Alila Rijani, okay, that was eliminated last night. And this task force combines and make an integrated data, integrated intelligence about a specific target. It's tens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of soldiers and security officers, Shabak officers, Mossad officers, analysts, technologicians, and others. Sometimes for one single target, but that's how it works. That's how it works.
Incredible.
It's amazing to see it because they work in the same war room. Okay, it's a war room that it is disconnected to the main war room, so they will have the ability to work in and to focus on their targets. And when they are ready, they will give their results and suggest ways how to employ the operation. Sometimes it will be from an airstrikes. I'm telling you that the most complicated operations are not from airstrikes, are from the ground. Sometimes, and don't ask me.
Obviously, because you need to make the operator disappear.
Yes, and sometimes even, I don't know if you will surprised to hear about it, but sometimes you will have even an operation that will not classified as an operation. It will be classified as an accident or maybe a natural causes. Okay, this is the most highest level of targeted killing operations, and we will stop here.
Fine, but relating to that point, Mr. Jeremy Arnold is asking, how much intelligence is gathered by Mossad in Iran, Lebanon, etc., and how much is given by local agents?
Well, I saw this incredible question, and I thought to myself, there are so many limitations of what I can say. So I don't know also what do you mean by how much, but many, many. Let me think about it again. we have a good intelligence system must have many sources, human and others. If you will not have human sources, you will have problems to get to the target that you want to get, or get to reach to the target that you want to reach. If you will have only human sources without the technology, it will not be sufficient. So a good intelligence, comprehensive one about on thousands of targets. Think about it. I saw today that the chief of staff said to or a senior other senior officer said to the government that we have targets for 6 weeks more. Okay, so to produce all these targets, you must have many sources. Some of them will be technological, some of them will be human.
Okay, we'll stop there. Fine. And I remember a cardboard cutout of Mujtaba that was
Yes,
used during his inauguration ceremony.
yes.
And that prompts speculation that he may be incapacitated or even dead. What is your assessment of these claims?
I think that he was injured. I think that he was injured more than they are willing to admit. They said that he was injured
In his
only,
leg.
yes, but I think it's not true. I think it was very important for them that he will speak in person. So if he was injured on the leg, they could produce something that will look like that everything is okay. So I think that maybe is even that.
It's an indicator of weakness, of
Yes,
something went wrong.
yes. Look, his house was attacked.
Mhm.
He was attacked like the other 40 that were eliminated. They say that he, at the minute, and it happens
Went
sometimes,
to a
right?
stroll in the garden.
Yes, he went out. Well, I'm not sure that it's true, and we will have to wait and see if he is alive or not, and what's in what condition.
Okay. Looking at the broader geopolitical landscape, how does Iran's current posture affect its relationships with Russia, China, North Korea, and key regional players such as Saudi Arabia?
Well, this is interesting, because there were times that the lack of action against Iran was explained that they have their allies, very powerful allies, and maybe that prevented us to do something. But as we can see, these allies are not real allies. Even superpowers like China or Russia, I'm not sure that Russia is a superpower, but a major power, are not coming to help almost in any way. Not to talk about sending an army, of
And
course.
how do you understand it? What do you conclude
I
from that?
understand that they understand. First of all, they understand that it's a regime that to gamble on that regime will not be wise. Will not be wise. I think, like the Arab countries, knows they can declare that they want to stop the war. The Arab countries, okay? They can declare that the aggressor is Israel. They can declare that they have some kind of, I don't know, Islamic unity, okay? In their hearts, and not only in their hearts, in their mouths, okay? But maybe not on television, but under the television, behind the scenes, they are very happy with this war. And they want to eliminate this threat, which is above the heads of all the Middle East, not only Israel. They understand that perfectly. I think that China and Russia understand also two main things, that to gamble on this regime, which is out of control. I don't think that Russia, look, at the time of the Cold War, Russia didn't give nuclear weapon to any country in the world, even at the middle of the war, during the Cold War with the United States. They had a kind of responsibility not to give a nuclear weapon to unrational regimes, okay, or uncontrolled regimes, okay. So today, I think that they understand also after all their suggestions to this regime to stop the nuclear project, to stop other things. And I think that they understand that to gamble on this regime will be to gamble on the future of the whole world.
Mhm.
And sometimes even hostile countries like China and Russia, and I classify them as hostile countries, okay, understand that to have this kind of country that is unleashed, uncontrolled, It's too dangerous. And of course, they don't want to confront the United States, which is by all means the most powerful superpower, and they don't want to confront her on this issue. Maybe in the future on other issues, but on this issue, I think that they know that it doesn't worth it, and this is the problem. And they stayed quite isolated, quite isolated. Now their strategy to bomb or to launch missiles on Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries, I
It's
think,
over 70% of their missiles are
yes,
aimed towards Gulf states.
yes, I think it's a strategy of despair.
Mhm.
I think that they know that if they will launch to Israel, the damage will not be too big. To launch against the United States, it's irrelevant. So they, out of desperation, try to find a solution that maybe will put a pressure on the United States. I think that they miscalculate the motives and the motivation of the United States, not Israel, the United States. And this proves to all the Arab countries the danger of this regime. So they, again, publicly, they can talk about how much is it necessary to stop the war and to reach a diplomatic agreement.
But according to their
Behind
action, we see that they prioritize ending the war. They're desperate to end it.
the Arab countries, I
Not the
think,
Arab countries, sorry,
uh,
the Iran.
yes, the Iran, yes, and I think that behind the scenes they have reached the opposite from their target, from their goal, the opposite, and they made the Arab countries more determined
Mhm.
because they understand that if this regime will last, it will be very bad for them.
Okay, Mrs. Lindsay Davidson would like to know, is the aim of the Iran war to deal with a nuclear threat, or is Israel using it to remove its enemies for the next generation? And I would add to this, what would success realistically look like for Israel and the United States?
Well, it's a great question. Uh, I will give a little warning that this is my personal opinion. Okay, I think that all of the above is right. That we have to strive to end the nuclear project, to end it. I think that it's a golden window, it's a golden opportunity that maybe will not come back. This is one. But I think that also the other goal is to eliminate the enemy for generation. Yes, I think that it's a very good definition. It's a very good definition. I
If
don't
we
know if
won't
it's
achieve
possible.
either of them,
Yeah.
or one of them, would you still agree that it was successful? That we
Only look, if the regime will fall, I think that we will reach the other goal. Okay, if we will reach only the goal of the nuclear weapon and the regime will stay, it still be a success, but a bitter one, a bitter one. Why? Because theoretically, and I will elaborate in a minute why I'm saying theoretically, the regime can restore again, and maybe not in 1 or 2 years, maybe in 10 or 15 years, to reach a nuclear weapon. But look, we have forgotten how a war ends sometimes. Okay? The war with the Nazis at the Second World War didn't end on 1945. Okay? The world, the Western world, had had to have long processes and inspection on Germany until the point that we all felt that it's safe already, that it will not become a Nazi country again.
So we need
So,
to be patient and we need to focus on weakening the
yes,
regime.
we need to be patient. We need to focus on weakening. And we need, if we want a decisive victory, a victory with a surrender, decisive surrender. That's how wars with arrivals, enemies like that must end. If you don't want to come back, like President Trump said, and I think he's right, of course, even in 10 years, if you don't want to come back and deal again with the problem, and maybe this time with other administration, with less support and other problems, you must end it like World War II or other wars with a surrender agreement. And in a surrendering agreement, you can put a lot of conditions, like a supervision in Iran on their military army, on their military industry, and the military itself,
Yes,
and
but
the
according to the
military
responses
capabilities.
right now, this is not the direction that they're heading. They seem like surrender is out of the question.
Well, look, I'm saying that these are the public declarations. I'm not sure that it will stay like that if we will be determined as we are saying or claiming that we are. We is Israel and the United States together. If the president, the American president, for example, next week will say that he had enough and he will stop the war without this surrender, okay, maybe it will not be enough. So I said specifically, it's my opinion, and I'm not sure that it will happen. But my suggestion to our government and to others is to consider once and for all to finish war with a decisive victory, and the decisive victory is only with the surrender agreement.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question from Mr. John Alexander on the same topic. Is Iran really ready for regime change? And if so, how will that deliver strategic advantage for Israel?
Well, this is an excellent question. In my opinion, yes. The short answer is yes. I think that too long the Iranian people was depressed or oppressed. Okay, I think that, and we can see it, that they had enough. I think that they were willing, and maybe are still willing, I hope, but they were willing a month ago, 2 months ago, to pay a very high price. And
They
I
did pay a
think,
very high price.
yes, and I think that we reached a point that the administration, the regime in Iran is in its weakest point in history since the revolution. Is it a insurance policy that they will fall? It's not.
Mhm.
I'm saying it's not. It's a totalitarian regime. They built the system maybe even more tight and more tough than any other totalitarian regime that I saw in the past. And it's not sure. And it's not sure. But we see millions. And intelligence says that, not only the pictures at the media. We see millions that had enough and are ready to change the regime and to go back to the period that this nation wasn't an Islamic republic but a rational regime. The economy there is a disaster. Everything is a disaster. Everything is ruined. And I think that they had enough. I hope that it will be enough for the change because I'm not sure, because the administration is still very strong in internal terms, okay, not external. In internal terms, it's a very big country. We cannot do the job ourselves, only ourselves, even with the United States. So it will have to come from the bottom, from the people. The main problem, and this is the last word about that, the main problem that we cannot identify in our intelligence a real element, a real factor of opposition that can gather all the masses together. You know that a good revolution must have a good
Leader.
commander, a good
Mhm.
thinker, a good leader. We don't see that. I don't see the exiled Shah as somebody who could do it, in my personal opinion. And we will have to see if from the ashes of this war maybe will rise somebody that can gather the masses in the street and can really change the regime.
Mr. Adam Levine asks, will this war lead the Arab world towards an acceptance of Israel as an intelligence-based partner, which leads to peace?
I hope so. I doubt it. Peace, it's a very high word. You can see we are talking about relations with Saudi Arabia, for example, for a decade, I think. Okay, and you can see that the problem is that they have their problems to accept a real peace treaty. Okay, a real peace treaty. So we are talking about normalization and other laundered words. Okay, to
Have
have,
arrangements, agreements, and
yes,
agreements.
agreements of, but not for real peace. Okay, because their terms for real peace are too high, I think, for us. This is my personal opinion. Of course, it's a political question, but in my personal opinion, it's too high to pay the price of a path to a Palestinian country or something like that. I think that it is too much to ask. So, with all due respect, and I think that the acceptance of Israel in the Middle East is very important, but I don't think that it will be enough for everybody. Maybe for part of the Arab world, yes. For Saudi Arabia, I'm not sure. Maybe something that will add a few countries to the Abraham Accords, maybe. But I can assure you one thing: behind the scenes, there is almost an ally against the Iranian threat and against the threat of radical Islam in general, also the Sunnite one. Okay? So, not everything is on the surface. It's sad that they cannot make the extra mile also to real peace agreement, but this is the situation. But I think that our position in the Middle East is the best one since independence war. Also, with countries that will have difficulties also now, but will also have many difficulties in the future also to have real something, real peace on the surface with very with a treaty, a real treaty, and very clear declarations.
Okay, so let's go to another front. The IDF is widening its buffer zone in southern Lebanon with further expansion planned. Is diplomatic arrangement, speaking of, realistic at this point?
I think not. Maybe I don't know something, but I heard that Hezbollah refuses to refuses to negotiate. Okay, all the negotiations that many actors, I don't know if many actors, few actors suggest are really a joke because a negotiation with the Lebanese government is irrelevant. The Lebanese government had many opportunities to restrain Hezbollah. Maybe they can't. Okay, maybe they had enough also, but they don't. They are not strong enough to do it. Okay, but this is not my problem. This is not our problem. And our mistake, again, this is my criticism. Our mistake is that we think that by false agreements since, I don't know, already 45 years. Guys, I thought I entered Lebanon 45 years ago as a soldier. Today, my son is in Lebanon again. Went in with his unit yesterday. Okay? False agreements, false understanding of so called ceasefire for the last 45 years, and again and again and again, like a wheel, we are going back to the same point. So, again, it's my personal view, my personal point of view, or my personal opinion that enough is enough. I said it also a year ago. Enough is enough. Two things we must do. Okay? We must take a territory from our northern border to the Litani River, evacuate it, and not give it back for decades, if at all. We will not send settlers there. We will not build cities or villages, but we will have this perimeter that will provide defense to the people of Kiryat Shmona, Margaliot, and other villages and cities that cannot come back again and again to an ongoing war, ongoing campaigns for almost half a century. It is impossible. And we must understand once and for all that part of a decisive victory is that when a country employ a war against your country, you take territory as a punishment, as a, as a sign. What is the cost of executing war against the state of Israel? We are not doing that. We did that at the last time at the Six-Day War at 1967. We must come back to this strategy, go back to this strategy, because jihadists, radical Islamists understand only this language. What I have lost in this war, if they didn't lose a territory, it will not be enough. It will not be enough.
It's the language of force and the language of land.
I would prefer the language of peace, but it's not possible.
It's a
How many more experiments we need? Okay, we did many experiments, the Oslo Accords, other agreements. We did many experiments. The experiments with countries like Egypt works. Okay, so if it works, I'm very happy about it. Okay, but when it doesn't work, and when you see that the logic of the other side is another logic, okay, you must prepare yourself first of all for a long war, and second, you must take your toll, take a price, make them pay when they are losing a war.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same in all fronts. The same in all fronts.
We have to move forward. So with Iran and Lebanon dominating the headlines, Gaza seems almost forgotten. Yet Hamas still appears to control it, even after 2.5 years of war. How might this evolve amid the current war with Iran?
Well, look, Hamas is the ultimate example of also to the previous answer. If you don't finish the job, it will hit you in the face again and again.
It's going to haunt us for years.
Yes. Now, the ceasefire in Gaza, it's maybe the first ceasefire in history that I supported before the elimination of the enemy. Why? Because of the problem of the hostages. Let's say it very clearly. We paid a price because of the problem of the hostages and because of the target, the holy target, the holy goal to bring them back home. And I think it was okay. I think that we paid this price gladly because I personally didn't believe that we will see all of them. We'll see all of them. I think it was amazing. But we set an agreement that will give us the opportunity to go back and to finish the job if the suggestion of President Trump and other countries will not work. And we must give this chance. This is the price that we pay. Okay, we must give this chance, but until a point that we understand that it's not going to work. And if you ask me, it will not work. Dismantling Hamas will be only by force of the IDF and the State of Israel, not by a peace council, not by a technocrat government and other inventions. It will not work, but I'm willing to give it a chance. Okay? This is the price. Now, the question is when will be that point in time that we will have to decide if we want to finish the job or to go again to a process that we will face it in, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, it doesn't matter. So I hope that we will take the right decision
And in the right
at the right time. Yes.
We have another question, this time from Mrs. K. Bagan. Why does Qatar continue to allow Hamas leaders to live there in luxury?
Yes, yes. But it's very simple. Qatar is a Muslim Brotherhood country. Qatar, the main ideology that is covered with a lot of money, is covered with a lot of money and a lot of investments at the West, is a Muslim Brotherhood country. Maybe the only one. Look, it's amazing. I don't know if you remember, but all Arabic countries at 2017 cut their connections with Qatar. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, because they all are afraid from the problem of the Muslim Brotherhood, which Qatar is supporting in Gaza, in Europe, in United States, in Asia, in Africa, everywhere, with a lot of money, with a lot of money. So it's not that they are forced to give them a shelter or haven in Qatar. They want to do it. They want to do it because it's the same ideology and they feel obligated to this organization in Gaza and in other places. So the nice words between them and the Americans and the Europeans and others is okay. The money that they invest, give this one an airplane and this one, I don't know what, a lot of money to universities and others. It's very nice. It will not cover the fact that it's a radical country and a Muslim Brotherhood governed country. And this is the reason. And it's sad to say that with their money, they launder this ideology in front of the Western world. Yes, it's a well-known strategy. It's a well-known strategy.
Mrs. Dorit Parker raised the question, after the 7th of October, how would you say the Shin Bet has changed, if at all?
Yes, it's an excellent question.
I agree.
I think that after a failure like that, the change will take us at least 5 years. That doesn't mean that the organization is toast, okay? And it doesn't mean that the organization is not working very well, okay? But still, I think since it was a conceptual failure, also of the Shin Bet, the government, the Shin Bet, the IDF, everybody, it's a systemic failure and a conceptual one. So there are many conceptual subjects to change. And I'm sad to say a little bit that it's very slow. The process is very slow. Maybe
Why
there
does it
is no
take
other
so
way.
much time? Because the same people are in charge, or why is the disassembling of it is such a long process?
First of all,
Dismantling.
first of all, when you investigate your failure, you must admit that it was a conceptual failure. Okay, Shin Bet didn't admit. It's my home. Yes, I'm very sad to say it. Okay, it's my home. They are my family. Okay, but they didn't admit that it was a conceptual failure. Two, they didn't um send, fired, I don't know, many people who were part of this failure. Commanders, workers, employees that was part of this failure. They refused to deal with the personal accountability. They refused. Okay. Third,
It's a
they have
well-known disease
now
in
a head of
Israel.
the Shin Bet, which is coming from outside and is not familiar with the organization and is not familiar with the tactics, the methodology, the intelligence, and other things. He is still learning. They are still learning. And I advised him that the first thing that he must do, he must renew the investigation, the internal investigation. I think that he has an obligation to the Israeli public to show other conclusions, other more deeper, other deeper conclusions, and to start from there, the the process, the deep process of change. He didn't do it. I don't know why. Maybe he has other tactics and other plan, but I think it will take quite time to change things in Shin Bet and in other parts of the security system, the Mossad, the IDF, and others.
Shalom, you spent many years focused on Palestinian terrorism. How
Mhm.
different is the challenge of confronting a state actor like Iran compared to a non-state actor like Hamas?
Yes, I thought my um, not the last position, but before that, I was the head of the division of the counterintelligence division, and I came there from dealing with Hamas and terrorist organizations. And it was the first time we made there a whole new structure to deal with state espionage and state actors. For me, it was the first time. In 2016, we established this division. You can see the results with the many spies that this division exposed at the last years. And I thought that it will be much more difficult because the difference between a country, a state actor, and an organization is very deep, very big. But I was surprised to see that it's not so different. The main principles are the same. If you know how to focus your energy, if you know how to define your goals and targets, if you know that there is no substance that replacement or alternative to human intelligence, and to combine it with technology, and to understand that only a multiple tools are the solutions, it's right for a terrorist organization and also to a state actor. So it's more robust, of course, a state actor. It's more sensitive because you cannot do sometimes things that you do with a terrorist organization, but it's okay. you can use to that. And I was 3 years the head of the division of counter-espionage, and there were fascinating years, and I think that we had very good results with this transition.
So just very shortly, after 27 years in Shin Bet, when you watch the current events unfold, what concerns you the most and what gives you the confidence about Israel's future security?
What concerns me the most is that a failure like October 7th can happen again. And I think
Unless we learn our lessons
unless we learn our lesson,
and
and
implement
we didn't
changes.
start to learn our lessons, we must have a very good investigation of what was happened. We must take conclusions, and we must change many things in our conception, in our perception of the enemies, and then from them to draw also structural and procedural processes. Okay, the tendency sometimes is to build a new unit or a new organization or a new structure before fixing the perception. And the conceptual failure, I told you, maybe I'll write a book on it. The conceptual failure is the deepest one, is the deepest one. And if we will not drill in to this failure and have the right conclusions, we will not have the right conclusions also about the structure that is needed. And in few words, I would say that we have to change also the structure of the security system in Israel with other balances. Okay? The United States did it after 9/11. We didn't do it. We have to think about the place of the IDF, the Shin Bet, the Mossad, and who is the national analyst for the government. Today, the formal national analyst is the IDF, which means that sometimes, and I think October 7 is part of it, he has other maybe things that can impact, can influence its analysis that are not the concern of a good objective analysis. So we must change something maybe in this structure and to have a structure more balanced and to have a real national consultant and a real national structure that will not deal with operations and conducting power and so on, but will be the real national consultant to the prime minister and the government, and to relieve this job from the IDF or from
And
any
are
other
you
security
optimistic?
agency.
Do you believe it will happen?
I hope so. I'm not an optimistic guy. I can tell you. I can tell you. But we are, we had to start it. We had to start it. We had to have an investigation committee. We had to have 3 or 4 or 5 times of investigation in the security system, in the government, in the national consultant, in other things, and we don't do it. It's too slow. And sometimes when you wait too much, you also get away from the hard evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And when we will start to deal with it really as it should, I will tell you that I'm more optimistic.
And on that note, I would like to thank you, Shalom. Thank you very much for your time and for sharing your very valuable insights. It's been a pleasure and extremely interesting. Before we conclude, I would like to remind you that JNF UK is currently raising funds to support communities across Israel facing repeated missile attacks and long hours in bomb shelters. Our teams on the ground are working to ensure that practical help reaches those who need it most. If you would like to support this effort, the donation link can be found in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Dana Zohar, and this has been Voices from Israel.
Thank you.